In the Northern Territory, there are government laws about renting a house. Renting is when a person pays money to the landlord to live in a house. A landlord is the person who owns a house. A tenant is a person who pays rent to live in a house that belongs to someone else. Rent is the money that you pay to the landlord so that you can live in the house. The laws about this are a law book called the Residential Tenancies Act. Perfect. This law talks about what tenants and landlords can do, their rights. The law also talks about what tenants and landlords have to do, their responsibilities. This couple is Carla and George. They live on a community in the Northern Territory a long way from town. Awesome. They wrote an application form and gave it to Territory Housing so they could get a house. Cool. A little bit later, Territory Housing told Carla and George that a house was ready for them to rent. Territory Housing is the landlord for the house. Carla and George are tenants. Before moving into that house, Territory Housing asked Carla and George to sign a tenancy agreement paper. The tenancy agreement talks about how the tenant and the landlord will both look after that house. Maybe Carla and George don't understand the tenancy agreement. They do not have to sign straight away. Carla and George can go to a lawyer and the lawyer will help them. Or they can call the lawyer on the phone. When Carla and George moved into that house, Territory Housing gave them another piece of paper named Ingoing Condition Report. The Ingoing Condition Report that they gave to Carla says nothing was broken in her house and everything works. This paper says what everything in the house and the yard was like when someone moves in. Maybe new or good or maybe damaged. The walls, the windows, the locks, everything. Territory Housing talked to Carla and George about the Ingoing Condition Report. Before you move into a house, look all around to see if anything is broken or damaged. If something is broken or damaged, write it on that Ingoing Condition Report paper. Sign your name on it and give it to the Territory Housing. If you don't write it down on that paper that something in the house is broken or damaged, when you leave that house, Territory Housing might say you have to pay for that broken thing. So don't forget. Tell Territory Housing about anything that is broken before you start living in that house by writing it on that paper. You have 5 days to give the Ingoing Condition Report to the Territory Housing. That man, George, is Carla's partner, and this woman, Patsy, is Carla's mum. Patsy lives in that house with them. But Patsy didn't sign that tenancy agreement, no. But Patsy's name is on that tenancy agreement paper too, because she will live there. Territory Housing calls Patsy a resident. What must the tenants do? They must pay rent, money to Territory Housing. Territory Housing has written down rules on paper that say how much rent money tenants must pay. How much rent money will Territory Housing tell you to pay? They will know how big or small the house is. They will know whether it is a new one or an old one, all fixed up. They will know how much money the adults in that house get from work. From that, they will tell you how much rent to pay. Territory Housing might tell you to pay the maximum amount of rent for that house or maybe less rent than that. You can find out the maximum dwelling rent for your house by speaking to Territory Housing or a lawyer. How can tenants pay their rent? Territory Housing helps tenants figure out how to pay their rent. Carla, George and Patsy share paying the rent money. They all pay some rent. Territory Housing asks Carla, Patsy and George to sign a family rent agreement. This says how much rent money each person will pay. All adults living in the house pay rent money. Carla asks Centrelink to pay her rent from her income management money. George works at the aged care centre. He asks them to take money out of his pay and send it to Territory Housing. Patsy asks Centrelink to pay her rent from her age pension. Territory Housing asks Carla and George to pay bond money. Another name for that is security deposit. That bond might be 4 weeks' rent, no more. Territory Housing will keep that bond money in the bank. Maybe Carla and George can't pay Territory Housing that bond money. They can just sign her name to an agreement paper to tell them that they will pay them that bond money bit by bit. Later, when Carla and George moved out of that house, Territory Housing will come and look at the house. Maybe Carla and George damaged something in the house on purpose, or maybe they did not pay all of their rent. Because of that, Territory Housing might take some of that bond money instead of giving it all back to them when they move out of their house. Carla, George and Patsy lived in that house for 6 months, and then the fan in the bedroom stopped working. It was really hot inside the bedroom. Sometime later, Auntie came over to sit with Carla and Patsy at their house. Auntie knew about renting houses. She was a member of the Housing Reference Group. She used to rent a house in town. Auntie told Carla that she can ask for Territory Housing to fix the fan for free. Territory Housing needs to fix things in the houses that they manage. Territory Housing asks many shire councils to repair their houses that they own. If something is broken in the house, tell the shire council right away. Don't wait. Tenants don't pay for repairs when it's an accident or when the thing broke by itself. Tenants have to pay for repairs when they break something without caring or they meant to break it. Carla and Auntie went to the Shire office to tell them about the broken fan. If something is broken in your house, get a repair and maintenance form at the Shire office and fill it out. Territory Housing have those forms at the Shire office. Carla should keep a copy of that form in case nobody fixes those broken things or they wait a long time without fixing them. If writing is hard, go in and tell the Shire Council office or call them on the phone to tell them. After 2 weeks, a worker came out and fixed the fan. 2 weeks waiting for some things to be fixed. That's okay. But if Carla and George are still waiting for the landlord to fix that thing, like maybe 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 2 months, ring the landlord and ask why he has not fixed it. You don't have to wait 2 months to call and find out what's happening. Keep asking. If nothing is happening for a long time, tenants can ring or go to a legal service office and they will help. Later, the toilet stopped working. It wouldn't flush. Carla and George were really worried about this. Long time without flushing a toilet, that is a big problem. So Carla went back and talked to a worker at the Shire Council office. She filled out forms like before. She asked the person at the Shire Council office how long until you fix the broken toilet. That worker told Carla that this fix is different to the broken fan. The broken toilet is an emergency repair. What is this? Emergency repairs are things like broken or burst water pipe, or blocked or broken toilets, or cut electrical wires, or a broken oven or stove, or when a flood or big fire damages something in the house. Things like this make houses no good for people to live in, or they might hurt a person or make them sick or even kill them. To stop that from happening, if any of these bad things happen, these emergency repairs, the landlord only has 5 working days to fix it, or to tell the tenant when it will be fixed. It can't take more than 14 days in total to fix the problem. Final. After 2 days, a worker came out and fixed the broken toilet. This was a good way because emergency repairs need to be done straight away. If Carla goes to the Shire Council and the Shire Council does not fix the problem, Carla can ring Territory Housing on 1800 104 076 to tell them the story and ask that they fix it. Ring Territory Housing Complaints and Appeals on 1800 104 076. If they still don't repair that broken thing, then Carla can ring or go to a lawyer and they will help her. Carla and George learned a lot of things about renting a house. Because Carla was talking to the Shire Council and Territory Housing, everything is good now, no problems. Sometimes there are still problems after talking. Not all people will be able to sort problems with renting out on their own. This might be you who are watching this film. If you are a tenant, you can get help from a lawyer. You can call these legal services for help. Ring North Australian Aboriginal Justice Agency or ring Central Australian Aboriginal Legal Aid Service or ring Darwin Community Legal Service or ring Top Ends Women Legal Service or ring Catherine Women's Information and Legal Services or ring Central Australian Women's Legal Service or ring the Legal Aid Helpline. They will help you for free, no money. If you want to speak in your language, the lawyer will get an interpreter for you.